Hare Krishna. ISKCON Chennai welcomes you to another session of Srimad Bhagavatam. Today we will be talking about King Chitraketu. Before that, we will chant the prayers. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jaya Mudirayet Nashtaprayeshva Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Naishtaki Krishnaya Vasudevaya Devaki Nandanaya Cha Nanda Gopa Kumaraya Govindaya Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhara Shrivasadi Gaura Bhakta Vrinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. So today we are going to talk about a great king who along with his relatives understood the fundamental rules of life. And what is that? That the soul is a spiritual living entity and it is different from the body. And when the body dies, the soul does not die, but it goes to another destination. So, who was that king? The king was called Chitraketu. Now, in the last class, we saw the story about Vritrasura. And who was it, Vritrasura? He was Chitraketu in his previous life. So, before we understand that, we should, after listening to the story of Vritrasura, Parikshit Maharaj, he asked Shukadeva Goswami, how come a demon who is always sinful and they are always engaged in giving trouble and anxiety to others who are always in the mode of passion or ignorance, how come he attained the supreme abode? How can he be so greatly Krishna conscious? And we also saw that during the battle, where there were discussions, there were philosophical discussions between Vritrasura and Indra, it was clearly understood that Indra was a neophyte devotee as compared to Vritrasura. Though Indra was also an exalted devotee, but still, as compared to Vritrasura, he appeared to be a neophyte devotee. And he was also materially so attached, whereas Vritrasura was totally detached. So, how come a demon and was totally detached? And when he lost his life, everybody saw that his soul it went to the supreme abode and merged with Shankarshana. So this was a doubt which Parikshit Maharaj got. What is he saying is, even great souls and great sages and demigods, they aspire for the supreme abode, but they do not get it so easily. And how is that Vritrasura, he got it? And how come he's a devotee of the Lord? So all these questions are answered by Shukadev Goswami and he narrates the story of Chitraketu that he heard from Vyasadeva, Narada and um, Devala. So what is he saying? Parikshit Maharaj is saying, Muktanam api siddhanam Narayana Parayanaha Sudurlabha Prasantatma Kotishva api Mahamune. O great sage, among many millions who are liberated and perfect in knowledge of liberation, one may be a devotee of Lord Narayana or Krishna. Such devotees who are peaceful are extremely rare. See, actually, what this Narayana now in so many 84 lakh species of living entities, only 4 lakhs are human. So, 4 lakh species, they are very small in number, and that is the human species. Amongst them, those who follow the religious principles are still very rare. That is, out of 4 lakh human species, those who follow human, that is religion, the scriptures, they are very rare. And amongst those rare species, those who desire liberation are even more rare. Amongst those who desire liberation, those who actually understand what is liberation are still more rare. And from that also, those who are bhaktas are extremely rare and they are called Narayana Parayana. What is Narayana Parayana? Narayana Parayana is a person who is always engaged in the devotional service of the Lord. So such a person is very rare, and it seems that Vritrasura falls in this category. So how come being a demon that he is a Narayana Parayanaha? That is the question of Maharaj Parikshit. So now we will talk about the story of Chitraketu, which Shukadev Goswami is telling Parikshit Maharaj. He is answering his questions. So he is telling that once King Chitraketu, he ruled the entire earth from his province called Surasena, and he had 10 million wives, but he had no son, no children. Though he was capable of producing a child, all of his wives were barren, and therefore he had no children. And this was a cause for his anxiety. Once what happened, Sage Angira happened to come by Shurasena, and he visited King Chitraketu. King Chitraketu, he received Angira very well, and he offered him food and water. After that, he offered him a nice resting place, and he sat at the feet of Angira very eagerly to listen to his teachings. Sage Angira, he was so pleased to see Chitraketu's humility, and he also noticed that though Chitraketu was opulent and he was taking care of the entire kingdom very nicely, still there was a tinge of sadness in his face. So Angira asked King Chitraketu that hope all is well in your kingdom. This is what generally the saintly persons they come to the kingdom of kings and they inquire from the welfare of the people. So he is asking Chitraketu, are all the people well in your kingdom? Is everything okay? Is there no starvation in the kingdom? Everyone is happy. Everyone in your kingdom is happy. Are the ministers obedient? So he's asking so many questions. And then he is asking Chitraketu, when everything is okay, then what is the reason for your sadness? So immediately Chitraketu, he tells that though I'm having everything, the only thing which is nagging me is that I do not have a son. So please, you guide me. What should I do to obtain a son? Angira understood his problem and immediately he arranged for a yajna and offered sweet rice to a demigod Twasta. And what he did was that sweet rice, after offering him, he asks the king to give the sweet rice prasad to his first and perfect queen Kritadyuti. So this was given to Queen Kritadyuti, and also King Angira, he told him, O great king, now you will have a son who will be the cause of both jubilation and lamentation. And the sage suddenly left. So Harsha Shoka, Harsha means jubilation and Shoka is lamentation. So this is the blessing Angira sage he gave to uh, King Chitraketu. King Chitraketu, he did not, he was just so happy that he is going to have a son that he did not ponder much about what the sage said. And in due course of time, Kritadyuti gave birth to a son. The king was so happy that he gave so much in charity to the Brahmanas and to all the people in his kingdom. At that time, he thought that why did Angira say like this that my son will be the source of jubilation as well as lamentation? So, jubilation, I can understand that he is born after such a long time, so we are all happy. But what is the cause of lamentation? Then he himself thinks that maybe that because he is the only son, he will be pampered by everybody and he may become very proud and disobedient. But never mind, having a disobedient son is better than having no son at all. So, in this way, Chitraketu he thought to himself, and then many days passed. One day what happened is now Chitraketu he what he did he started to spend more time with Kritadyuti and his son, and he began to ignore all the other wives. So they started condemning themselves that because we do not have children, the king is not paying any attention to us. So what they did is they they lost all good sense because now they are very angry. Since they are not getting any affection from their king, they started to get very angry and they lost all good sense and intelligence. They finally vented their pent up anger by poisoning the child. Now, Queen Kritadyuti, she was walking in the palace and she thought that her son has been sleeping for a very long time. So she asks her maid that you go and wake him up and bring him to me. And the maid, she immediately goes to the cradle and then she sees that the child is lifeless and the eyes are all rolled up and she screams because she realizes the child is dead. And hearing her scream, Kritadyuti, she comes running and when she sees the child dead, she falls unconscious. Hearing her scream, the news spread very fast in the palace, and everybody they came around and started weeping. The news reached the king, and he too, from his sabha, he came to the place where the child was lying, and on the way, he kept falling and getting up, falling and getting up, unable to bear the grief of the death of the news of the death of his son. And by the time he reached the cradle of his son, his hair and his dress was all in disarray, and he also fell unconscious there. Queen Kritadyuti, she regained consciousness. She regained consciousness and looking at the plight of her son, she starts accusing the Supreme Lord. She says that you are inexperienced in creation. That is, what is she trying to tell the Supreme Lord is, you are inexperienced. That is in the, if you go to see in the creation process, the father should pass away before the child, but now the child has passed away, the father is still alive and you have taken away the child. So you are inexperienced in your creation. This is what she is telling. And that you are the enemy of all living entities and you are never merciful. See, when a person is in ignorance and or when you face the reversals in life, you are naturally prone to talk such things. Generally, we see when everything is going smoothly in our life, at that time there is no cause for any lamentation or complaining or anything. And even when there is happiness, at that time we even forget to thank the God for all that he has given to us. But when there is a sudden jolt, like how the king and the queen went through like this, so then it is natural for the people to curse the Supreme Lord for taking away what is very dear to them. So this is our attachment to the material world. Like Arjuna says in the Bhagavad Gita in second chapter, 63rd shloka, he tells, sorry, in second chapter, seventh shloka, he says, Karpanya dosho pahata svabhava, pruchami tvam dharma samudha cheta, yachreyasha nischitam bruhi tanme, shishyasteham sadhi mam tvam prapanyam. Which means, now I am confused. He's telling Lord Krishna, now I am confused about my duty and have lost all composure because of miserly weakness. In this condition, I am asking you to tell me for certain what is best for me. Now I am your disciple and a soul surrendered to you. Now, Arjuna, when he was in the battlefield, when he sees his own kith and kin and he has to kill them, he loses his sense of duty. He forgets that his sense of duty is to fight and fight the battle. And he starts giving various reasons to Lord Krishna for why he should not fight. So at that time, Krishna chastises him, saying that you're talking like a pandit, but you are not aware of what you're talking. So at that time, Arjuna, he tells, okay, I am confused now about my duty. Karpanya dosho, that is because of miserly weakness. Now I am confused about my duty. So I surrender myself to you. So he accepts Krishna as a spiritual master and he asks for guidance from him. So what is this Karpanya dosha? Karpanya dosha is a miserly weakness. Kripana. A Kripana is a person who is attached to his family, children, society, etc. And he thinks that he can protect them and even protect them from death, and even they can protect him from death. This is the illusion in which a Kripana he lives in. Whereas an intelligent person, he realizes that one day this body is going to perish. So the duty of a person who is in the human body is to inquire about the Lord and always do service to the God. So that is the intelligent person. But a foolish person who does not solve. Why is he called a Kripana? Because he does not solve the problems of human life and quits the world like cats and dogs without understanding the science of self-realization. This is mentioned in the Brihad Aranyaka Upanishad. So actually, The human form of life is not for sense gratification, but it is for self-realization. So a Kripana, he thinks it is for sense gratification, whereas an intelligent person understands that it is for human form of body is for self-realization. Now these queens who were very jealous and they gave up, they gave vent to their pent up anger. For that, uh, we can also compare an incident that is now when a person is ignored and he becomes morose because he is not being given any attention. So, and that is why the result of that is Krodha. But we can take the example of Queen's Suniti. She was also ignored by her husband. She and her son Dhruva were ignored by king, and but she did not go to the negative emotion of anger. Why? Because she was a devotee of the Lord, and she always thought of the Supreme Lord, and she also guided her son that you do not wish ill for them, but instead you go to the Supreme Lord and ask Him for whatever you want. This is the advice she gives. So, because she was a devotee of the Lord, she could give good advice to the Lord. Whereas these millions of wives of Chitraketu, they were not devotees of the Lord, and they would, when they did not get attention of the king, they decided that this child is the cause for all our misery, and therefore we should end the child's life, and that is what they do. So, in chapter 2 of Bhagavad Gita, 63rd shloka, Lord Krishna tells, Krodhat bhavati sammoha, sammoha smriti vibhramaha, smriti bhramsat buddhi nasho, buddhi nashat pranashyati, which means from anger comes delusion, from delusion bewilder of memory, and when the memory gets bewildered, intelligence is lost, and when intelligence is lost you fall again into the material pool. So this samsara sagara, if we have to escape from this samsara sagara, we should actually be surrendered to the Supreme Lord. We should understand that the body is different, soul is different. So this is what now Chitraketu and his family they will learn. We will see that in future. So the creator of this material world. Okay, before that, the queen, she criticizes the Supreme Lord. So she's telling that he is inexperienced in creation, but he is not inexperienced. It is we human beings who are inexperienced, who do not know that, who do not understand that are all sufferings and happiness. Both suffering and happiness is a part of this material world, and both come without asking. We do not seek happiness, but yet happiness comes. At the same time, we do not seek misery, and still misery comes. So, this is all our past activities, our past karma in our previous lives, due to which we are situated in the current situation. But when you are in total anguish, like Queen Kritadyuti, that time all reason goes out of the head, and you tend to blame everybody and anybody, and especially the Supreme Lord. And because he is the creator of this world, and that is why we think that he is the enemy of the living entities, but it is not so. The Supreme Lord, he created this world only because the living entity wanted to enjoy, and he provided all the comforts for the living entities in this world. But he also gave the scriptures, and he told them how to come back to him from this material world, how we should go back to the spiritual world. But once we come to this material world, all this enjoyment which we have, which is actually very temporary, we are more engrossed in that, and we forget the Supreme Lord. So this is what Vritrasura's example we could understand, that how he was totally detached from this material world and how he could think of the Lord all of the time. So before that, when he was Chitraketu, he went through this anguish, and he had to learn the lesson the hard way. So the creator of this material world is not affected by the activities of the material world. He creates and remains aloof from the creation. He has created this world only for the living entities, because the living entities wanted to enjoy. So for his children, how a father, for the enjoyment of his children, he buys certain things or he provides certain things. In the same way, our Supreme Father, he created this world because of our desires. To fulfill our desires, he created this material world, and as per our desires we were given certain bodies, and to come to the material world, and also scriptural injunctions to go back to him. So he creates, but he remains aloof from the creation. So he is not part of this creation. He has created it, and he has given the instructions to the children how to come back to him. Now, uh, as the king, and now the king and the queen, they lamented. The king was, he looked as though he was almost dead, and he was lying at the feet of his dead child. And the entire kingdom, they were also mourning the death of the little prince. So at that time, Angira, he chose to come with Narada Muni and visit King Chitraketu, because he wanted King Chitraketu to come out of his lamentation. And when he comes there, both of them, they come as avadutas, to give Chitraketu instructions. So they are explaining. First, he comes and asks, "Get up, O king. What is the relationship between you and this boy? Is it a father and son? You may tell that he is my son. Okay, so now he is a son. Now he has left the body. So what is the relation now between you and him? If he is your son, then the body is still here. So why are you weeping? And who was he in your previous birth? Were you the father in the previous birth to this boy? And in future, will you be the father to this boy?" So he says that conditioned souls are joined and separated by time. Like how he's explaining, he's giving the example of the sand in the beach. The sands, they're all there together, but when there is a wash, when there is a great wave which washes off the sand, then the particles of the sand, they get separated. So you don't know whether the same particle of sand, they come together. So he's saying the same way, conditioned souls, they come together and they are separated by time. We can give another example. When we travel to a particular place by a train, say from Chennai, if we are going to Mumbai, so on the way, so there are some travelers who board the train, and while we are in the train, we become friends with them, and once we reach our destination Mumbai, we go our own ways. So then after that, we don't meet at all. In the same way, even in this life, we as a family, say about four or five, we come together for a particular purpose, and when the life ends, then we go our separate ways, and then we never meet again. So this is what he is trying to explain, and he's saying that the Supreme Lord is in control of everything. And he also explains that when a seed is sowed in the soil, at that time, if the soil is fertile, then the seed gets germinated and grows into a healthy plant. But if the soil is not fertile, or if the seed is not of good quality, then there is no growth of the plant. The seed does not germinate. So in the same way, the father, if he is destined to have a son, only then he will be able to give birth to a son. So this is all in the control of the Supreme Lord. So, though Chitraketu had so many millions of wives, he was destined not to have a son, and that is why all his wives turned out to be barren, and he did not have son for a long time. But when Angira, he came at that time, if he would have explained that to Chitraketu, he was not in a position to understand that. So he says, "Okay, you will have a son, but who will be a cause for jubilation and lamentation." Jubilation, because Chitraketu, when he gets a son, he is very happy, and the son will leave Chitraketu, so he will be sad. So he tells that. So now, when a child is born, as per his past activities, the child gets a particular father and a mother. So that's what here is explained. Divisions of generalization and specification, such as nationality and individuality, are imagination of persons who are not advanced in knowledge. So that is, we think I am an Indian, I am an American, or I am this and that. This is all bodily designations. But actually, is this true? Okay, from the material concept, it is I am an Indian or I am an American. It is true. But the imagine of person, like now how we dream. Now, suppose we may dream that I am a king, and then suppose I'm being chased by a tiger, and then suddenly the dream goes off. So when you get up, you realize that it was only a dream. So this life also, Angira is explaining, this life also is actually a bigger dream. So what we think is real, it is not, it is actually a bigger dream, which we think that we are all, this child is mine or this husband is mine. Yes, in this life, we are all connected with each other. And because generally we are all children of God, naturally we will have affection. And because they are our own kith and kin, we have more affection towards them. but he is trying to tell Chitraketu to be detached from this bodily relationship, because that is a Kripana mentality. So, though we all come together as a family, but actually in this birth, we are the family. And when we take the next birth, that time we do not remember this birth, who was a husband of this birth, who was a child of this birth, who was a parent, who was a mother of this birth, who was a father of this birth. We get into a totally different set of family. So, this is what he is trying to explain. So, everything is because of the bodily designation. So when Angira sage, Angira is telling all this in detail, Chitraketu, he wipes his eyes and then suddenly he tells that you two are not ordinary people. You all have come as avadutas, but definitely you two are very great saints, and you have come to enlighten materialistically engrossed people like us who are totally ignorant, and because of ignorance we suffer so much. So you people, you yogis, who you'll just roam in this world like madmen, but actually you'll roam around the entire world to give knowledge to ignorant people like us. So you please enlighten me. You bring me out of ignorance. This is what Chitraketu is telling Angira, though he does not know it is Angira who has come. Then Then Angira, he reveals to himself. He says, "I had come some time back, and it was I who performed the yagya for your child, to for you to beget a child. I am Angira, and this is Narada Muni." And he tells Narada Muni to give him instructions on Bhakti Yoga. So Angira also tells the body is the source of all miseries. Try to understand your real position and give up your unnecessary attachment. See, even in Bhagavad Gita, Bhagavan says, Matra sparshastu kaunteya shitoshna shukka dukkada agama paino nitya tam titik chashva bharata. So miseries, that is happiness and sadness, they will come together. Always they will come one after the other, but all this is because of sense perception, oh Arjuna. So try to tolerate it. So because we connect everything with the sense perception, the sense of our body, we think that everything is our own, and but it's, that is why he's saying the body is the source of all miseries. So what we must learn from this, one must give up his faith in material things and give up attachment for them. Then one will be sober and peaceful. So one must understand that these material things are temporary. Though they are real, they are still temporary. And what is temporary is not going to give you permanent happiness. So we should understand that this body is temporary, this relationship is temporary, everything is temporary. Though we have to, it does not mean that because, okay, in this life they are my husband or this is child, so I should not have attachment. It is not like that. You should have love, but you should not be attached. So you should love your family and you should give care, good care for them, and treat them with love and respect, but we should not be attached. We should love them, but we should not have attachment. Attachment in such a the case is when there is separation, it should not break us. And that is why that attachment, which we are saying, God keeps telling that don't you be free from attachment, be free from attachment. If we are free from attachment from material things, then to what should be attached? So we should be attached to the Supreme Lord. So the same expression of attachment, it should be dovetailed towards the Supreme Lord. So then we will have the capacity to face any situation, like how Vritrasura did. Now, what Narada Muni, after explaining, even he has explained many things to Chitraketu, and with his mystic power, what he brings back the dead son of Chitraketu. So everybody, all the lamenting relatives, they are able to see this, because everybody is in a state of anguish. So Narada Muni, what he does, he brings back the dead son with his mystic power, and he tells him, "Oh dear boy, see, everybody is lamenting your death. You have gone before your time. Everybody wants you to take care of the kingdom. You grow up and you take care of the kingdom, and you take care of your father and mother. You have left them before time and they are lamenting like anything. So you speak to them, you remain here." So the boy, he's saying that is the boy is a jiva. Jiva is a soul. Kasmin janmanyami mahyam pitaro mataro bhavan karma bhi brahma yamanasya devatiryan yonishu. According to the results of my fruitive activities, I, the living being, transmigrate from one body to another, sometimes going to the species of the demigods, sometimes to a species of lower animals, sometimes among the vegetables, sometimes to a human species. Therefore, in which birth were these my mother and father? No one is actually my mother and father. How can I accept these two people as my parents? Now, this Jiva, if he attains the supreme abode, why will he come back to the material abode? So now he is trying to tell, the Jiva is explaining, he is not talking like a child. He is explaining like a full self-realized soul. He is telling that I have taken so many births, I have taken different bodies, and in different bodies there were different parents to me. So in which birth were these my parents? So nobody is actually anybody's permanent father and mother. And for that, he is giving an example. The soul is giving an example. Just as gold and other commodities are continuously transferred from one place to another in due course of purchase and sale, so also the living entity wanders throughout the entire universe, being injected into various bodies. Now, when the father and the mother they come together and the semen of the father is injected into the mother's womb, at that time a third body is created. So that body is also material, though the soul is not material, the body is material. So as per the karma of the child, he gets a particular mother and a father. So it is not in his control to choose his parents. He gets parents as per his past karmas. So that is why he is saying the living entity wanders throughout the entire universe. So as per your karma, you will get a particular body in any of the 14 planetary systems. So in this birth, that is why they have been the Chitraketu has been his father. He says Lord knows how to adjust everything. The best course is to depend on him and do one's duty in devotional service to the Lord. So the only way to get out of this samsara sagra is to do devotional service to the Lord. So when you're doing a particular karma, now we have taken birth, we have got this birth as per our past karma, but what we do now in this birth, it decides our future body. So we have to be very careful. And like Vritrasura, he was Chitraketu, but because of a curse, he became Vritrasura. So, but he was always engaged in devotional service. Now, after listening to this, that is, the Jiva also says many more things. The Jiva is trying to explain everything. That is the reason Narada he brought the Jiva back to the body, because he wants that the Jiva itself should explain to Chitraketu about the soul. The Jiva further says that the living entity is eternal. It does not take birth nor does it die. And it is equal to the Supreme Lord in quality. It is imperishable. But the Supreme Lord is huge, and we, being just a part and parcel, we are just a spark of the Supreme Lord. And that is why when we come to this material world, we are illusioned and by the material world. And then the living entity creates body for himself as per his desires and karma. Then the soul further, the jiva further explains that the Veda tells us that the soul is responsible for his lives in the material world, where he is trapped in the cycle of reincarnation, of getting one material body after another. If he likes, he can remain suffering in the prison house of material existence. Although God arranges through the material energy to give the living beings the bodies they desire, the Lord's true desire is that the conditioned soul should get away from the miserable Ferris wheel of material life, that we keep going up and down, without understanding that we should go back to God. The Lord actually wants us to come back to Him, but the Jiva, after coming into the material world, does not understand this, and because of his various activities, he assumes different bodies. So it is very difficult. It is very easy to get a material body. You will get a material father in the form of an insect or a tree or an animal or a vegetable or a human being, anything is possible. But to get a spiritual father, to is a bona fide spiritual master who will guide you to go back to the spiritual world is very difficult. So we have to go back to our original father, Sri Krishna, to the original world, the spiritual world from where we have come back. So saying this, the Jiva left, and Chitraketu and their relatives were totally astonished after listening to the Jiva. As soon as the Jiva left, the body again fell lifeless to the floor. So now Chitraketu and his people, they all understand the futility of their anguish. They become enlightened. All of them become enlightened. Even the queens who poisoned the child, they were also ashamed of their behavior, and they consulted the great brahmanas over there how they should atone for their sins. They all arranged for the cremation of the child, and Chitraketu, after taking bath in the river, Narada, he was very pleased with him, and he tells him that he will give him a mantra which is very auspicious. So Narada becomes his spiritual master. He becomes a spiritual master to Chitraketu. Now, why? Angira now he tells that at that time I came alone because you were not in a position to listen to any spiritual talks. So you were so materially engrossed that you wanted a son. You were lamenting for that. You were lamenting for a son that. Even if I would have told you about the truth of life, that everybody is not destined to have a child, you would not be in a position to understand that. Then that is why there was a child for you who gave you jubilation and lamentation, and now you have understood the miseries of a person who have children. So now you are in a position to understand about the spiritual topics, and that is why I have brought Narada over here, who will teach you Bhakti Yoga. So Narada, he becomes a spiritual master, and he teaches him the mantra, which is most auspicious. Narada tells him, after accepting it from me, in 7 nights you will be able to see the Lord face to face. So the mantra is so powerful that he instructs Chitraketu that if he recites it within 7 days, he will be able to get the darshan of the Lord. So what is the mantra which Narada gave Chitraketu? ॐ नमस्तुभ्यं भगवते वासुदेवाय धीमहि प्रद्युम्ना प्रद्युम्नाय निरुद्धाय नमः शङ्कर्षणाय च नमो विज्ञाय मात्राय परमानन्दमूर्तये आत्मा रामाय शान्ताय निर्वृत्तोद्वैतदृष्टये. So after giving him the mantra, Chitraketu, because he was fully surrendered, Chitraketu started to narrate the mantra, and Narada and sage Angira, they left uh, the palace and went to the topmost planet known as Brahmaloka. Now Chitraketa, very sincerely, he chanted the name of Shankarshana, the mantra which he gave. He chanted it with great care and attention, and he attained the shelter at the lotus feet of Anantadeva. That is, after 7 days, Chitraketu, he had the darshan of Lord Anantadeva. He was so white and so beautiful, decorated with all ornaments, that Chitraketu, on seeing him, his eyes filled with tears, and he kept washing the feet of Lord Anantadeva with his tears. And finally, when he could speak, he started offering prayers to Lord Anantadeva. Anantadeva was very pleased. So, what were the prayers offered by Chitraketu to Lord Shesha, that is Anantadeva? He's telling him, you exist in the beginning, middle, and end of everything. You are called unlimited. You are the source of all knowledge and are transcendental to material qualities. Bhagavata Dharma means following the orders given by the Supreme Lord. One's occupational duty is instructed in Srimad Bhagavatam and Bhagavad Gita according to your point of view, which never deviates from the highest goal of life. What is the highest goal of life? To go back to the Supreme Lord and render devotional service to Him in the spiritual world. So you are the supreme, pure, and you are full in all six opulences. Therefore, I offer my respectful obeisances to you. And there are even more prayers which is there in the Bhagavatam. After listening to these prayers, Ananta was very happy, and he also gives instructions to Chitraketu, the conclusion of which is that you are my eternal part and parcel. Now, all the jivas are eternal part and parcel of the Lord. So, he is telling Chitraketu that you are my eternal part and parcel, and by remaining unattached to material enjoyment, you will definitely attain the highest goal, and that is the Lord's eternal association. So, only if we are unattached to the material world that we can get attached to the Lord. Otherwise, it cannot be. It's like when you go in a boat and the anchor is still there in the boat and you're stretching your hand towards the Lord that you want to go back to Him. But when your foot is still anchored down here very deeply, how can you go to the Supreme Lord? Unless you take out the anchor, you cannot go there. So you should be detached from the material world and attached to the Lord. That is the conclusion of the instructions given by Anantadeva to Chitraketu. So, what is the lesson we learn from here? The deity in the temple should not be considered material. Now, we should understand that the deity in the temple, the Lord has been so merciful to us that He is taking the form of a Archa Vigraha in the temple so that we can render devotional service to Him. So, this is the mercy given to us by the Lord. So, that is why the deity in the temple should not be considered material. The Lord is there in the form of Archa Vigraha. So, what now? We are not there in the spiritual world, but here God has descended here as a Archa Vigraha where we can do devotional service while we are still in this material world. So, by offering food to the deity and by decorating and serving the deity, one gets the same result that one derives from serving the Lord personally in Vaikuntha. So that is why we do so much of service in the temple. Why? Because we know that the Lord is there here in the form of Archa Vigraha, and that He has given us this opportunity for us to serve Him. We should take the most of it and not consider the deity to be material. Now, Chitraketu, after he listens to the talks of Angira Muni and Narada Muni and also the instructions of Lord Anantadeva, now he has become totally liberated. So, also you have, when you do devotional service, apart from spiritual benefits, you get material benefits. So, what was the material benefit Chitraketu got was he became the king of the Vidyadhara planet, and he was also given a airplane by Lord Vishnu by which he could travel everywhere wherever he wanted he could go, and he used to go spreading the message of Lord Narayana everywhere. The Supreme Lord, he used to spread the message, and in his airplane he always had several Vidyadhara women to whom he enjoyed talking about the Lord all the time. So he was always engaged in congregational chanting of the glories of the Lord, and he started traveling in this plane to all the outer space. So one day, while he was traveling like this, he wandered in the bowers of Sumeru mountain, where he came upon Lord Shiva embracing Parvati, surrounded by an assembly of Siddhas, Charanas, and great sages. Great sages like Narada also was seated there. So what he saw was from the airplane. He saw that Lord Shiva had Parvati on his lap, and he was holding her very lovingly, and he was giving a lecture on renunciation. So when he saw the uh, situation, Chitraketu could not help but laugh at Lord Shiva, because renunciation, he was talking about renunciation and he was talking to the renunciates, and Lord Shiva himself is a great renunciate. So when he saw that he was having Parvati in his lap and he was giving lecture to all the renunciates, he laughed. And not only he laughed, he talked loudly, and he said that ordinary conditioned persons generally embrace their wives and enjoy their company in solitary places. How wonderful it is that Lord Mahadeva, although a great master of austerity, is embracing his wife openly in the midst of an assembly of great saints. So Lord Shiva, after hearing this, he remained silent and he smiled, and even the sages and all the great renunciates who were listening to Lord Shiva's lectures, they also smiled and they remained silent. So actually, he did not mean to offend Lord Shiva. What Chitraketu meant was that Lord Shiva is such an exalted personality. So if people, ordinary people, when they see that he is sitting with his wife like this in the open, they may talk ill of him, and he did not want that Lord Shiva should be talked of otherwise. So just like a friendly banter. Now, when you're when you're friends, like now he was also a devotee of Shankarsana, and Lord Shiva also was a devotee of Shankarsana. So on that basis, he thought that he could talk like that to Lord Shiva. But Lord Shiva is such an exalted personality that we cannot think of him like that. So, but Chitraketu, he just in a friendly banter, he talked very loudly in front of everybody. So Parvati, she did not like the way her husband was addressed. So Lord Shiva did not say anything. Parvati, she did not like what Chitraketu said. So she cursed him. She says, "My dear son," that is, she says that, "Oh, so now you know more than my husband, who is an exalted personality. You know that how shameless we are. And all these sages who are sitting here, they also don't understand how shameless we are. It is only you who are so much younger than us, you know how shamelessly we are behaving." So, and the great sages like Narada and even Brahma, they have not objected to anything. It is you who know so much more than all of these people. Do you have so much of knowledge? So you have got so much of pride that you are close associate, that you are very closely associated to Lord Vishnu, and therefore I curse you. She says, you take birth in a low sinful family of demons, so that you will not commit such an offense again towards any exalted saintly person in this world. And she also says that now, because of your pride that you are very close to Lord Vishnu, so you have to be born as a demon and be away from Vishnu. This is the curse she gives. Now, Chitraketu, he was not at all afraid of Parvati's curse, because what he felt is he did not say anything wrong. Maybe the way he said it was not right, but what he thought was he was just trying to warn Lord Shiva that if common people see him, they will not think right about him, and that is why he says that you should not be like this. But as a true Vaishnava, what he did, he descended from the airplane and bowed down before Devi Parvati with great humility and asked for forgiveness. He says, I accept the curse upon me, for happiness and distress are given by the demigods as a result of one's past deeds. So though Chitraketu, he knew that he is a great devotee, that he is a devotee of Vishnu, he knew that this curse also was the power of higher authority due to which it happened, and that is why he immediately gets down from the aeroplane and he accepts the curse of Mother Parvati. And he says, "Oh mother, you are now unnecessarily angry. But since all my happiness and distress are destined by my past activities, I do not plead to be excused or relieved from your curse. Although what I have said is not wrong, please let whatever you think is wrong be pardoned." So he asks for forgiveness, and he boards the plane and he goes back. So Lord Shiva, he immediately tells Parvati, he praises Chitraketu. He's saying, see, this is the uh, behavior of a Vaishnava, even he had the power to counter curse, but he being an exalted Vaishnava, he did not curse, he accepted your curse. So they are solely because they are solely engaged in the devotional service of the supreme personality of Godhead. Since they are always engrossed in the service of the Supreme Lord Narayana, they never fear any condition of life. They are ready to do service for Narayana in whatever hellish conditions also they are, in whatever condition they are. They only think of Narayana and they only think of doing service to Narayana. So it is immaterial to them wherever they are or in whatever form they are. So he is saying that those who do devotional service to Lord Vasudeva Krishna have naturally perfect knowledge and detachment from this material world. Now Chitraketu had become totally detached after he had listened to the lecture from Angira Muni and Narada Muni, and saying prayers to Ananta Deva. He was totally purified and he became totally detached. So now Mother Parvati's curse also did not affect him. He just accepted the curse and he left. So now Shiva is telling, that neither I, nor Brahma, nor the Ashwari Kumaras, nor Narada or the great sages who are Brahma's sons can understand the pastime and personality of the Supreme Lord. So, what Leelas the Supreme Lord conducts, nobody is able to understand. Even exalted persons like Shiva and Narada are also not able to understand. This is what Lord Shiva is telling Parvati. So, after he explains that what a great devotee Chitraketu is, Parvati, she is very ashamed of having cursed Chitraketu, and she immediately bows down her head and covers her face with her sari. So, this is how that is Lord Shiva is explaining to Parvati how a Vaishnava should be appreciated. What is their standard of behavior? Thus, Chitraketu, he being a great devotee of Lord Vasudeva, he accepted the curse of Parvati and hence he took birth as a demon Vritrasura. So this is the Falashruti. So now we understand that as Chitraketu, he had um, performed devotional service so sincerely that he did not fear that he would be born as a demon. But in the body of a demon, when he was speaking to Indra, he was always talking about the Supreme Lord. In fact, he was advising Indra that you use the Vajra, which has the prowess of the Supreme Lord, because that will definitely kill me. Even Indra had doubts, but Vritrasura had complete faith in that. In the prowess of Lord Vishnu, and he encourages Indra to kill him fast because he wanted to leave this material world as soon as possible. He was not scared of death, and he always thought of the Supreme Lord continuously, and that is why see his span of life in that very birth. It did not he did not live for a long time. He just emerged from the fire, and he came straight to the battlefield, fought with Indra, and at that very time when Indra killed him with the Vrajra, uh, Vritrasura, immediately he attained the supreme abode. So this is not possible for any demigods nor the sages who are always aspiring for the abode of the supreme Lord. It takes them so many births to go back to the supreme Lord. But Vritrasura, in the very next birth and in a few hours, he could go back to the supreme Lord. So that was the greatness of Vritrasura. He was Chitraketu, the greatest devotee. Due to the curse, he became a demon, but he never forgot his past life. And this is how the God protects his devotee. He gave him the remembrance of his past prayers, and he gave him the remembrance to remember him at the time of death. So this is how the Lord is very merciful to the devotees. So what is the Falashruti? If one hears this history of Chitraketu from a pure devotee, the listener also is freed from the conditional life of material existence. So we have to get out of this material existence. We better start listening to the Srimad Bhagavatam. One who rises from bed early in the morning and recites this history of Chitraketu, controlling his words and mind and remembering the Supreme Personality of Godhead, will return home back to Godhead without difficulty. So, through Srimad Bhagavatam, God is giving us so many various simple ways to go back to Him. So, let us take this opportunity of listening to all these stories and also chanting the holy names of the Lord. That was what is the easiest method of going back to Godhead. So we should listen to all these kathas and continuously chant the holy names of the Lord and do devotional service and think of going back to Godhead. So there is another short story which I will tell you. This is quite a popular story. There's a merchant who has four wives, and he loves his fourth wife the most, and he pampers her, and whatever he wants, he fulfills all her desires throughout his life. The third wife is very, very beautiful, and the merchant fears that she might run away with somebody. This is the fear always in the merchant's mind. The second wife, she is he banks on her for all the advices, whatever he wants. So he relies on her for that. So he loves her also very much. Now the first wife, actually, she is always with him, but he He just totally ignores her. He does not even bother to look at her. Now one day this merchant, he becomes old and he realizes that he is going to die. So he calls the fourth wife and he tells, I loved you so much. Will you follow me when I go? So she says, no way. The merchant is very shocked. Then he calls for the third wife and he asks her, will you follow me when I depart? So she says, life is too good. After you go, I will go away with somebody. I will remarry someone. Now, this further shocks the merchant. Then he calls for the second wife and he asks her, will you follow me? I have always relied you for all good advice. Now, will you follow me after I depart? So she says, at the most, I will come with you up to the grave. Now the merchant is devastated. At that time, he hears a small voice saying that I will come with you wherever you go. And when he turns, he finds that his first wife, she has been totally ignored by him and she's very skinny. And he feels that I should have paid more attention to her. So, in this way, all of us, we have four wives in our life. The fourth wife, whom the merchant pampered and fulfilled all the desires, is our body. We pamper our bodies so much, but the body in the end gives way. It does not come at all with us when we depart. So, the fourth wife is our body. The third wife, who says that the life is too good, I will remarry. So, the third wife is all our material possessions. Once we die, someone else takes it away. So, that is remarriage to someone else. Then the second wife, she says that I will come up to the grave. They are all our families and friends who can only come up to the grave. They cannot come beyond that. And the first wife is the soul, Atma, which comes with us wherever we go. So, this story also shows us that how much importance we are giving to this body instead of the soul. So we should understand that we should feed the soul with devotional service to the Lord, because it is only the soul which will come with us wherever we go. So this is the end of today's katha. You can contact this person for Bhagavad Gita and Bhagavatam. And thanks, Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.